Most stories on a military base begin with noise, jets cutting the morning air, boots striking pavement, or distant artillery rolling across the horizon like a storm. But this one starts with silence, a cold, disciplined silence. Camp Crowley, an active Marine Corps installation tucked deep into the desert, was the kind of place where voices stayed low, backs stayed straight, and secrets traveled only in whispers. Where ranks weren't just worn on collars, they lived in the air around you, thick as humidity. Under the high sun, dust drifted like smoke, the heat bending the horizon into a wavering line of mirage. The base buzzed with controlled energy, Marines heading to drills, units prepping for deployment cycles, officers reviewing readiness reports in windowless rooms. But in the middle of all that movement was someone the base rarely noticed, by design. Lieutenant Colonel Dana Keene, 40 years old, quiet, thin, sharp features, gray-streaked hair always tied neatly back, not tall, not imposing, not loud, never the one barking orders across the parade deck. But the moment she walked into a room, something changed. The air sharpened, conversations slowed. Even senior officers, those who outranked her, lowered their tone, because Dana Keene wasn't just another officer, she was the newly appointed executive officer of Camp Crowley, handpicked by the commanding general himself. And as much as some Marines didn't like that a woman held the position, none of them said it out loud, at least not where she could hear them. Not yet, the mess hall. 40 hours. Lunch rush. Metal trays clattered. Conversations echoed. The smell of eggs, reheated chicken, and industrial coffee filled the air. A line stretched from the serving stations to the far wall. At the back of that line stood Corporal Brett Matheson, 24. Strong jaw, broad shoulders, a reputation for being bold in the wrong ways. The kind of Marine who believed respect came from volume, not virtue. He wasn't a bad Marine, but arrogance had teeth, and Matheson let it bite through every boundary. He was frustrated, hungry, and late for a team briefing. When he felt someone step behind him, quiet, almost ghost-like, he didn't look. He didn't care. But when someone accidentally brushed his sleeve while shifting trays, he snapped. He spun halfway, shoulder-checking the figure behind him, hard, and barked, "Watch it, lady. Line starts behind me. Don't cut." The entire row of Marines went silent. Matheson frowned. He looked around. Everyone was staring at him, not at his face, not at what he said, but at the woman he shoved, the woman who still hadn't said a single word. Thin, calm, holding a tray that barely moved, despite the impact. Then his eyes dropped to her collar. His face drained of color. Silver oak leaves. Lieutenant Colonel. And when she slowly looked up at him, her expression unreadable, Matheson felt something primal tighten in his throat. He had just shoved the XO of the entire installation. A dead, suffocating quiet swallowed the room. A sergeant whispered under his breath, "Oh my God." Another Marine muttered, "Corporal's done." Matheson's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He opened his mouth, scrambling for words, excuses, apologies that wouldn't sound pathetic. But Lieutenant Colonel Dana Keene beat him to it. She didn't raise her voice, didn't change her posture, didn't even blink. She just said, "Corporal Matheson, step outside." The mess hall inhaled sharply. Matheson stood frozen. Keene turned her head slightly, meeting the eyes of every Marine watching. This will be handled. Then she walked toward the door. Matheson followed, stiff and trembling. Everyone watched them leave. Everyone thought they knew what would happen. Everyone was wrong. Outside, the sun hit like a physical force. Keene didn't stop until she reached a small administrative hallway beside the mess facility, quiet, empty, the hum of old fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. She faced him. No anger, no disgust, only clarity. "Corporal," she said, "tell me what happened in there." Matheson swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I didn't know. That's not what I asked." He froze. She waited. His throat tightened. "I reacted poorly, ma'am. You shoved a superior officer." "Yes, ma'am, you addressed me as lady." He nodded, humiliated. "Yes, ma'am. You spoke to me as though I wasn't a Marine." He felt heat flood his face. "Ma'am." "I was frustrated. It won't happen again." Keene studied him for a long moment. Then she said something that shocked him more than any reprimand. "I believe you." Matheson blinked. "I believe it won't happen again," she continued. But I also believe this wasn't really about me. He frowned, confused. You've had 5 disciplinary notes in the past year, she said, her voice steady. Your sergeant reported you're competent, but volatile. A good Marine, just tightly wrapped. Matheson felt a pain in his chest, the shame of being known too well. Corporal, she said. What's going on with you? He stiffened. Nothing, ma'am. Keene didn't move. Try again. He clenched his jaw. Permission to speak freely? Granted. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter, ma'am. His voice cracked. I work, I push, I take every lousy shift, and it's still not enough to be respected. I'm invisible until someone needs something. Then suddenly I exist. His breath trembled. He hated that he sounded emotional. Marines don't usually talk like that, Keene said softly. But Marines are still human. Silence hung between them. But that frustration, she added, cannot become violence. Not toward those you outrank, and definitely not toward those who outrank you. You know better. Matheson nodded miserably. Yes, ma'am. She took a breath. Corporal, I'm not going to destroy your career. His head snapped up. I'm going to use this moment to build you back. Matheson stared at her, stunned. Here's what's going to happen, Keene said. You're going to write a detailed reflective statement. You're going to attend anger management sessions for 8 weeks, and you're going to work directly under First Sergeant Hale so he can mentor you. His voice was small. That's it? That's it, he swallowed. Ma'am, why? Because Marines make mistakes, she said. But we only lose them when we pretend those mistakes define them. She turned to leave, but then she added, and Corporal, next time you feel invisible, try remembering that rank doesn't make a Marine valuable. Conduct does. Matheson stood there long after she left, the weight of the moment settling inside him like a turning tide. By 1600 hours, everyone on base had already heard the story. A corporal shoved the XO. The XO didn't ruin him. The XO didn't even yell. Most Marines expected a court-martial. Instead, they got something they didn't understand. Mercy. Some admired Keene. Some questioned her. Some accused her of being too soft. But Keene didn't care. She had a bigger storm coming. 2 days later, Keene entered the command conference room for a leadership briefing. The commanding general, Major General Foster, sat at the head of the table, tall, stern, salt and pepper mustache. Around him sat colonels, sergeants major, intelligence officers, and one man whose eyes locked onto Keene with clear irritation, Colonel Derek Stowe, the base's operations director, charismatic, sharp, and the unofficial architect of Camp Crowley's internal old guard. He had heard about the mess hall incident, and he did not approve of her response. Keene took her seat. General Foster opened the meeting. But halfway through the operations segment, Stowe veered off agenda. Sir, he said, while we're discussing discipline, some recent leadership decisions have raised concerns among senior staff. The room tensed. Foster raised an eyebrow. Go on. Word is out, Stowe continued, that the XO allowed a subordinate to physically assault her without recommending UCMJ action. This sets a dangerous precedent. Keene rested her hands calmly in her lap. She waited. Foster turned to her. Dana? She nodded and spoke evenly. General, a non-judicial corrective plan was applied. The Marine accepted responsibility without resistance. His command is satisfied, and the situation is fully resolved. Stowe leaned forward. With respect, ma'am, this softness erodes discipline. Keene didn't turn her head, but her voice cooled. What erodes discipline, Colonel, is believing punishment is the only form of leadership, murmurs rippled. Stowe pressed harder. Ma'am, this isn't the Air Force. Marines don't respond to therapy sessions and reflective essays. Enough, Foster cut in. Silence. The general looked at both of them. Colonel Keene acted within her authority. If her judgment proves wrong, that will become clear in time. But so far, her decisions stand. Stowe sat back, jaw tight. Keene didn't celebrate the win. She saw something change in Stowe's eyes. A line had been drawn. War, quiet, political war, had begun. Over the next weeks, Corporal Matheson changed. Keene saw it in his posture, his interactions, the newfound restraint in his voice. Not perfection, but promise. One evening, around 20-30 hours, she walked past the fitness center and spotted Matheson seated outside on a bench, sweaty, tired, staring at the ground like he was wrestling with something invisible. She approached. "Corporal." He snapped to attention, startled. "Ma'am, at ease." He relaxed, shyly rubbing the back of his neck. "Just finished a session, ma'am. Hale keeping you busy?" "Yes, ma'am, and honest." She gave a faint smile. Then she noticed something in his eyes, an exhaustion that wasn't physical. "You look troubled," she said. "Speak freely." He hesitated, then exhaled. "Ma'am, I didn't tell you everything that day." Keen waited. "I wasn't just frustrated. I was angry at myself. My dad served. My grandfather served. I wanted to live up to them, but all I've been doing is messing up." He paused, breathing unsteadily. "My sister wrote me last week. Said she's scared I'm going to get kicked out. Said she can't lose me, like we lost our mom." Keen felt a quiet ache in her chest. "Corporal," she said gently, "being a Marine isn't about not failing. It's about what you do after you fail." He looked up at her. "That's why I'm giving you a chance. Not because you earned it, but because you can." He swallowed hard. "Thank you, ma'am." She nodded. "Get some rest, Corporal." When she walked away, she didn't see the tears he blinked back, but she had given him something far more rare than punishment. Hope. The base slept lightly. For 100 hours. Keen walked alone across the compound, reviewing personnel reports on her tablet. The night air was cool, the sky clear, stars bright enough to cut through the base's orange lights. As she neared the operations building, she heard voices from inside, Colonel Stowe, and 2 other senior officers. Their tones were hushed, urgent. Keen paused by the half-open door, not eavesdropping, just listening long enough to assess whether she needed to enter. Then she heard her name. "Keen's leadership is undermining Marine standards," Stowe whispered. "If Foster won't deal with her, we will." Another voice murmured, "Sir, is this a good idea?" Stowe's voice hardened. "She needs to be removed, quietly, before she turns this place into a daycare." Keen's jaw tightened. She stepped into the doorway. All 3 officers went rigid. "Gentlemen," she said calmly, "if you have concerns about my leadership, my door is open. But plotting against your executive officer behind a half-closed door? That's not leadership. That's cowardice." Stowe's face flushed deep red. "Ma'am, you're misinterpreting." "No," she said sharply. "I'm not." Then she turned to the other 2 officers. "Leave us." They left quickly. Keen faced Stowe alone. "Colonel," she said quietly, "you are walking dangerously close to misconduct unbecoming." Stowe scoffed. "And you're walking us toward mediocrity. Marines need fear, not coddling." "No," Keen said. "They need discipline, not ego." Stowe stepped closer, eyes cold. "You're not fit to lead Marines." Keen didn't flinch. "But I am leading them," she said. "And as long as I do, you will not undermine this command." Stowe's lip curled. "This isn't over, ma'am." Keen nodded once. "No, Colonel, it isn't." 2 days later, 0640 hours, training field. Keen walked the perimeter, reviewing preparations for an upcoming readiness evaluation. And that's when she heard shouting, not drill shouting, panic shouting. She ran. At the edge of the obstacle course, a Marine dangled from a rope wall, suspended awkwardly, one harness line twisted dangerously. If it failed, he would drop nearly 25 feet onto hard soil. It was Corporal Matheson. A retention hook had snapped. The safety team froze, unsure how to stabilize the situation without worsening the tangle. Keen didn't hesitate. She sprinted up the rope ladder beside him. "Corporal," she called. His voice trembled. "Ma'am, don't, it's not stable." "I know," she said. "You're not falling today. Hold still." She climbed with precise, fluid movements. Years of covert operations training, long before she became XO, came back like muscle memory. She reached him, looped her arm around the support beam, secured the frayed line. "Matheson," she said softly, "look at me." He did. What do Marines do when the ground falls out from under them? We hold on, ma'am, and who pulls them back up? Their unit. She locked the rope, anchored him. Together they descended safely. When they hit the ground, Matheson sank to his knees, shaken. Keen helped him stand. "You're alive," she said gently. "That's what matters." But as she turned, she saw another figure on the far side of the field. Colonel Stowe. Watching. Expression unreadable. Something inside her shifted. This was no accident. She couldn't prove it. Not yet. But she knew. That night, Keene filed a formal inquiry into training protocols. Stowe pushed back instantly, dismissed her concerns, blocked her investigation. But Marines talk, and one Marine had seen something. A broken safety hook tossed into a trash bin behind the training shed. Matheson found it first. Then he found her. "Ma'am," he said, breathless. "I think someone sabotaged the equipment." She studied the broken metal, recognized the clean cut. This wasn't wear and tear. This was deliberate. "Corporal," she said, "you need to be very careful. Do not discuss this with anyone else." "Yes, ma'am." She submitted the evidence directly to General Foster, and Foster called an emergency meeting. 8:30 hours command conference room. Stowe sat stiffly, hands clasped. Keene entered with her report. Matheson stood beside her as a witness. Foster glared at Stowe. "Colonel, this is sabotage. Sabotage that endangered a Marine's life." Stowe's jaw twitched. "With respect, sir, this is a fabricated accusation, a distraction. This corporal was already in trouble. Maybe he modified the equipment himself for attention." Matheson recoiled. "Sir, no, Keene stepped forward. "General," she said, "permission to speak freely." "Granted." She faced Stowe. "You plotted against me. Then you endangered a Marine to make me look incompetent. I don't care what you think of me, but you crossed a line, and Marines could have died because of you." Stowe slammed his hand on the table. "That's enough. You don't have proof." Keene reached into her folder, pulled out security footage. The training field shed, nighttime, a figure entering, cutting equipment. Angle unclear, but posture unmistakable. Stowe's posture. Foster exhaled slowly. "Derek," he said, voice heavy with disappointment, "I trusted you." Stowe's face crumbled, not with guilt, but rage. "This base has gone soft," he hissed. "She's turning Marines into weak." "Colonel," Foster snapped, "you are relieved of duty, effective immediately. MPs will escort you off this installation." 2 military police officers stepped in. Stowe stood, shaking, eyes burning into Keene like an accusation. "You'll ruin this base," he spat. Keene met his gaze. "No," she said quietly. "I'll restore it." Stowe was taken away. Matheson stood straighter, breathed easier. Justice, real justice, had finally landed. Later that afternoon, Keene returned to the place where everything had begun. The mess hall. Marines looked up as she entered. Not with fear, not with tension, but with something different. Respect. Matheson rose when she approached. "Ma'am, thank you for saving me, for believing me, for everything." Keene gave a small nod. "Corporal, it wasn't just me. You stepped forward. You told the truth. You showed courage when it mattered." He swallowed, emotion tightening his voice. "Ma'am, I won't forget it." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "And one more thing," she said softly. "No more calling yourself invisible." He smiled faintly, finally believing it. 3 weeks later, routine returned. Training resumed. Morale lifted, and the base moved with a steadier rhythm. Keene walked the grounds one morning, watching Marines run drills, communicating cleanly, moving efficiently. Matheson led a squad through an obstacle course, confident, careful, transformed. She paused, and for the first time since taking the XO role, she felt peace. She didn't need to shout, didn't need to intimidate, didn't need to be a stereotype. Quiet leadership had worked, not by being soft, but by being strong in a different way, a way Marines didn't always understand at first, but always felt in the end. Strength isn't always loud, courage isn't always forceful, and leadership isn't always about power. Sometimes it's about the discipline to do what's right even when it's easier to do what's expected. In the U.S. Armed Forces and in life, true authority comes not from rank, but from character.